Okay, in this video then, we're going to be going through A-star work on the sine rule and the cosine rule. I'm not actually going to be focusing on the area of a triangle using a half A, B sine C, because that's B grade work, and we're focusing on really to strive for that challenging A-star question. Okay, so just a quick few things just to recap. Capital letters on a non-right angle triangle are always what we call the angles, and then opposite that capital is always the little lowercase letter. So obvious with the A and the B, maybe less so with the C, but it is a lowercase c. First of all, I'm going to talk through when we use the sine rule. Okay, the sine rule we will use when at the end of the question we will know two sides, two angles, and I recommend that you actually write that down in the exam. Two sides, two angles next to the sine rule, like just by here. So literally as soon as you get in, two sides, two angles, that one there. The rule for the cosine, or what we use for the cosine, is at the end of the question we will know three sides and one angle. And you need to know the difference between them, okay? So for sides, we always want to have the sides up on the top. So A, B, C, all the little lowercases up on the top, angles on the bottom with sine of that angle. Okay, now the other important note here is that you only ever use two of these three things here. You never use all three, and I'll show you what I mean in an example. If I was to find angles, I would what is called transpose all the letters so that all the angles were up on the top and all the sides were on the bottom, which is absolutely fine. That's still the same sentence as long as I switch every single bit. Okay, we're going to look at this question first here, but what I would like you to do now is to pause the video and attempt this question first. Okay then, so I'm coming back after you pause and had a go. So I'm going to label the sides first. So this is little a, this is little c, and this is little b. And we always underline the sides that we know, and the side AB, so A to B, is this one here. Now, one of the main things you need to do is check that the sides we've underlined, that we know the angle opposite. Absolutely fine in this case, and absolutely fine in this case. If we didn't know the angle opposite, you would need to actually go and find it, which, because we know angles in a triangle add up to 180, we can add those two together and then take away that from 180. You need to write that down now in the what's the key message, that if we didn't know the angle opposite the side we'd underlined, we must go and find it when using the sine rule. The next thing I would do is write out the sine rule. Now, I'm going to write out the full thing, but feel free not to write this first bit because some of you will know why, and I'll just confirm in a second why that is. Now, because I'm finding a side, I'm finding little c, side AB, that means that I wanted the signs up on the top, and because I've underlined C and B, it means I do not want A. Okay, so I don't need it. What some people have done is they just won't have written it and just gone straight to this bit here. I would now substitute my numbers into that. So B, little b, is 12.3 over sine B, so that is sine 87, is equal to little c over sine 34. I am then going to take this divide by sine 34 over, where it will become a sine 34 times, by this fraction here, this 12.3 over sine 87, and I will pop that into my calculator. As some of you will already know, that is not the only way to write it. You could write 12.3 sine 34 all over sine 87 and it would still work. Okay, I popped that into my calculator and the answer I got was 6.8875 blah 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 is equal to C. Now, unless it says in the question round it to 2 decimal places or something, we tend to round that to 1 decimal place. So this answer would be 6.9 centimetres to 1 decimal place. I would then finish my answer off by putting a box around it to make it really nice and clear to someone marking my work to see. Okay, looking at this question here, it says find x, y, z. So that means I'm at x, I go to y, and then go to z. So I've actually made an angle, I'm not looking at a line here. Sometimes you may see like a little hat on the letter, that also means finding the angle. Okay, now you will see in the sine rule we have, for angles, I put the angles up on the top, and it says A, B, and C, but in this question I've got x, y, and z. We'll carry on the pattern. If sine A over A is equal to sine B over sine B, it must follow suit that you get all the way to sine Z over Z. Okay, I'm going to do exactly the same thing that I did before. I'm going to look at the lines that I've got. So I've got little z and I've got little y. and I haven't got little x, so I underline the sides that I know. Do I know the angle opposite it? Yes, in this case, and the one I'm finding is the middle letter y. This is what I'm finding. This is the angle of y. And the good news is, look, 5, I know, or I want to find the angle opposite it. So I'm going to take a shortcut here. Because I've underlined y and z, I'm only going to write down sine y over y is equal to sine z over z. From there, I'm going to sub in and get the following, which was this. I'm then going to take the 5 round to the other side to get the following answer, which was this. When I multiply by that 5, I could say sine 41 over 8 times by 5 and write it there, but I'm just writing it on the numerator because I think it's a bit neater. And the final thing I'm doing now is I'm taking sine across the other side, and when sine goes across the other side, it becomes sine minus 1. So this will give me capital Y, but I'd have a bracket. A bracket would automatically come up on my calculator when I sine minus 1, and I'd have 5 sine 41 over 8 would go into that bit there. And I got the following answer: y equals 24.2 degrees to 1 decimal place. Okay, so that's the sine rule, finding an angle and finding a side. I'm now going to look at the cosine rule. Now, we've already said that this is for when you've got, at the end of the question, you will know 3 sides and 1 angle. So the cosine rule states this: but the way they give it to you is only good for finding sides. I want to show you how to rearrange that formula. So this is what it is currently to find a side. To find an angle, the only angle here is this thing here, and I don't like that being negative, so I'm going to take the whole thing over to the other side, and at the same time I'm going to get rid of anything that's not got an angle, so I'm going to literally just swap those 2 sides there. So that is going to give me 2bc cos A is equal to b squared plus c squared minus a squared. I'm now going to get rid of anything that is attached to cos A, which is this 2bc, and it's actually times in by the cos A. So when this comes over, this will become cos A is equal to the b squared plus c squared minus a squared, and then that will come over as a divide by the 2bc. Okay? The way I remember it myself is that these letters here, the b and the c here, are the b and the c there. That's always the negative, and these are squareds by here. Okay? Finally, I'm going to take the cos over, and the cos will go over, and it will become a equals cos to the minus 1, and then it will automatically bring up a bracket, and that fraction that was there above will go into there. Now, you are not told that bit. It is up to you whether you want to sub the numbers in at this point here and rearrange, or try and rearrange with the algebra. I prefer the latter. I prefer to rearrange with the algebra. It is up to you which you want to do. Okay? So, again, in the key message, take a second now, write down that you may need to rearrange the cosine formula to this form here to find an angle. It's a pretty mean question. It's pretty hard if that comes up. Okay, question 3, AC. Now, I know this is the cosine rule because at the moment I'm giving 2 sides and an angle. I'm asked to find AC. So at the end of that question, I will know all 3 sides. So label up your triangle, little b, underline it because you want to find it, and then this is little c, underline it because I know it, and this is little a, again, underline it because I know it. Now, if I write down the formula, which is given to us in the exam, a squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cos A, it is absolutely no use to us, and that is because capital A, I do not know. I know capital B. So I need this to be a capital B at the end instead of a capital A. Now notice here, if that's a capital A, that's a little a there, so that means I must have b squared there. That means I want to swap the a and the b round. So where I see b in here, I change to a, so it'll be a squared plus c squared minus 2ac cos B. I'm now going to chuck my numbers into that, so that will give me b squared is equal to, let me zoom out a little bit, and it would be 7 squared plus 12 squared minus 2 lots of 7 and 12, and then cos, and then the angle being 34. That goes into my calculator. And it gives the answer B squared is 53.72. Now, you do not round this number because we're not finished. It's not B, it's B squared. I now take the squared over to the other side, and it becomes a square root. The way I put that into my calculator is I put in the square root, and there's a button next to equals called A and S, and you press equals, and it should tell you that little b was 7.3 centimetres to 1 decimal place. Okay then, final one, number 4. It says here, find angle BAC. So that is this angle here. A, middle letter of the hat on it. I know this is the cosine rule because straight away when I see it, it's got all 3 sides and it's asking me to find an angle. 3 sides, 1 angle at the end. I'm going to mark A there, and luckily because I've already done this work, I'm going to steal it so I can find the angle. So we know that the formula is going to be cos to the minus 1 of b squared plus c squared minus a squared all over 2bc. So label up the triangle. Here's little a, underline it because I know it. Here's little b, underline it because I know it. And here is little c, underline it because I know it. Chuck it into that, and then you should get your answer. So it would be a equals cos minus 1 of b squared, so 11 squared, plus c squared, so that's plus 8 squared, minus a squared, so minus 15 squared, all over 2, and I always stick it this bit in brackets, so it's always the first 2 numbers that we had here. So 2 brackets 11 brackets 8, close your brackets and see what you get. And I got the answer 103.1 degrees rounded to 1 decimal place. Well done if you beat me to it. And that concludes this video on A-star questions on sine rule and cosine rule. Okay, thank you very much.